It's the summer of 1588. Across the narrow seas, England holds its breath. From the bustling docks of Plymouth to the quiet villages of Kent, every eye is fixed on the horizon, dreading the inevitable. Queen Elizabeth I, a Protestant monarch on a Catholic throne, faces the greatest threat of her reign. King Philip II of Spain, a fervent Catholic, has launched his Enterprise of England, a colossal fleet, that invincible armada, aimed squarely at her heart. This isn't just a war, it's a crusade for the soul of a nation, a clash between empires, religions, and futures. King Philip II of Spain harbored a burning ambition to restore Catholic rule across Europe and crush the Protestant heresy. England, under Elizabeth, was a defiant stronghold of Protestantism, a haven for privateers like Sir Francis Drake, and a constant thorn in Spain's side. Philip poured unimaginable wealth into building the Armada, a fleet of 130 ships, bristling with cannons and carrying some 30,000 men. His plan was meticulous: sail up the English Channel, link with the Duke of Parma's elite Spanish tercios in the Netherlands, and launch a full-scale invasion. England's fate hung by a thread. In our history, the Armada's journey was plagued from the start. English harassment, poor tactics, and crucially, a series of devastating storms in the English Channel and later around Scotland, crippled the vast fleet. The famed Protestant wind scattered ships, dashed them against rocks, and drowned thousands. Only half the Armada ever returned to Spain, a shattered dream. England, saved by divine intervention, or perhaps sheer luck and naval prowess, was free to chart its own course, laying the groundwork for its future as a global maritime power. But what if the winds of fate blew differently? What if the storm that scattered the Armada never materialized with such destructive force? Imagine a calm, clear channel greeting the Spanish fleet in late July. Admiral Medina Sidonia, his ships largely intact and his morale high, would have encountered little resistance from the smaller, though swifter, English ships trying to hold formation. The crucial link-up with the Duke of Parma's waiting tercios, delayed in our history, proceeds unimpeded. The strategic advantage shifts dramatically, paving the way for an invasion long thought impossible. As dawn broke on August 8, not over a storm-tossed sea, but over a surprisingly placid Thames estuary, the unimaginable happens. The Spanish tercios, Europe's most feared infantry, begin their methodical disembarkation near Tilbury. Thousands of battle-hardened soldiers, disciplined and unwavering, pour onto English soil. This isn't a skirmish, it's a full-scale invasion. The iconic sight of Queen Elizabeth I, riding amongst her troops at Tilbury, delivering her famous speech, "I know I have the body but of a weak and feeble woman," becomes a desperate, but ultimately futile, act of defiance against an unstoppable tide. For weeks, sporadic, desperate fighting erupts across Essex and Kent. The English militia, though brave, is no match for the professional, well-equipped Spanish tercios. Their pikes, muskets, and disciplined formations cut through the English ranks. Sir Francis Drake and Lord Howard, valiant at sea, find their ships useless against an army already ashore. Queen Elizabeth's inspiring words echo across a crumbling defence. 3 weeks later, after fierce skirmishes and the relentless march of Parma's forces, the road to London lies open. The capital, once thought impregnable, braces for the inevitable. The siege of London is swift and brutal. The city's medieval walls, strong against earlier threats, prove inadequate against Spanish artillery and the overwhelming numbers. Panic grips the population as news of the Spanish advance spreads like wildfire. Many flee, but millions are trapped. On September 10, 1588, Spanish banners are raised over the Tower of London. The humiliation is complete. England's independence, hard won over centuries, vanishes in a matter of weeks. The heart of the kingdom, its vibrant capital, now beats to the rhythm of Spanish drums. Queen Elizabeth I, refusing to flee, is captured within the walls of Whitehall Palace. Her once unshakable spirit now confronted with utter defeat. Her famed red hair, now streaked with grey, frames a face etched with defiance, yet also despair. King Philip II, upon hearing the news, would have felt divine vindication. Elizabeth, the heretic queen, is imprisoned, stripped of her crown and authority. Her reign, a golden age in our history, is abruptly and tragically cut short, replaced by the grim reality of foreign occupation. With Elizabeth I removed, Philip II swiftly asserts his authority. England becomes a de facto viceroyalty of the Spanish crown, ruled by a Spanish governor, likely the Duke of Parma. English laws are subordinated to Spanish decrees. Strategic ports like Plymouth and Portsmouth become vital Spanish naval bases. The English fleet is absorbed or destroyed, eliminating any naval challenge. This unified Spanish-English front now dominates the Atlantic, projecting unprecedented power. The balance of power in Europe, once delicate, shatters completely, tilting decisively in Madrid's favor. The most profound change is the forced Re-Catholicization of England. Protestant churches are seized, their clergy replaced by Catholic priests. Copies of the English Bible are burned. The Spanish Inquisition, or a similar religious tribunal, is established to identify and suppress Protestant dissent. Public conversions are mandated, and those who refuse face persecution, imprisonment, or even execution. The grim work of rooting out heresy begins, systematically dismantling a century of religious reform and imposing strict adherence to Roman Catholicism. A once vibrant religious landscape is brutally reshaped. Naturally, not all Englishmen would simply accept this new order. Pockets of resistance, fueled by Protestant fervor and national pride, would emerge. Underground networks, reminiscent of the early Christian communities, would attempt to preserve English culture and faith. But the might of the Spanish Empire, combined with the ruthless efficiency of the Inquisition, would be formidable. Rebellions would be brutally suppressed, their leaders made examples. Over time, the spirit of defiance would wane, replaced by a sullen acceptance, or forced emigration for those who could escape. With England firmly under its heel, Spain's grip on global power becomes absolute. The vast wealth of the Americas, now augmented by English resources and naval assets, fuels an even grander Spanish Golden Age. The English Channel, once a defensive barrier, becomes a strategic highway for Spanish ships. England's skilled shipwrights and sailors, rather than building their own empire, are now absorbed into the Spanish maritime machine. This combined might renders other European powers, particularly France and the Dutch Republic, almost powerless to challenge Spanish hegemony. The most dramatic impact of this alternate history unfolds across the Atlantic. Without an independent England, there is no Jamestown in 1607, no Plymouth in 1620. The entire colonization of North America falls exclusively under Spanish dominion. The familiar narrative of British expansion into New England and the 13 colonies simply vanishes. Instead, Spanish missions, haciendas, and military outposts stretch northward from Mexico, establishing a vast Nueva España del Norte. The landscape, culture, and language of North America are fundamentally reshaped. Imagine vast territories speaking Spanish, governed by viceroys from Madrid, and steeped in Catholic tradition. The future United States, as we know it, would never exist. Indigenous populations would face a singular, monolithic colonial power, their fate determined solely by Spanish policies. Instead of English common law, Spanish civil law would govern the land. Instead of Puritan settlements, Franciscan missions. The cultural tapestry of the continent would be woven with threads of Spanish language, architecture, and religion, creating a North America unrecognizable to our eyes. Perhaps the most profound consequence is the absence of the British Empire. That vast, globe-spanning network of trade, influence, and settlement, which shaped so much of modern history, simply never materializes. India remains uncolonized by Britain, its fate perhaps left to Portuguese, Dutch, or even native powers. Australia, Canada, vast swathes of Africa, their histories entirely rewritten. The global diffusion of the English language, of parliamentary democracy, and of common law is severely curtailed. A monumental force in shaping the modern world is erased from existence. Without a powerful, Protestant England fostering intellectual and scientific revolutions, the European Enlightenment might take a very different path. The ideas of Locke, Newton, and Hume, crucial to the development of modern political thought and science, may never fully blossom, or be suppressed by a dominant Catholic Spanish intellectual orthodoxy. The emphasis on individual liberty and free inquiry might be significantly dampened. This could lead to a slower, more centralized, and perhaps less radical progression of scientific and philosophical thought across the continent. Consider the linguistic and cultural landscape of this alternate world. English, in our timeline, became a global lingua franca. In this world, Spanish would be the undisputed dominant language, not only across the Americas but likely influencing much of Europe and beyond through Spain's unparalleled trade and colonial network. The rich literary tradition of English, from Shakespeare to Milton, might exist only as a regional curiosity or be overshadowed entirely. World culture would be infused with a much stronger Hispanic flavor, changing art, music, and social norms fundamentally. Fast forward to the present day. What would such a world look like? A dominant Spanish empire might have continued for centuries, perhaps only challenged by a resurgent France or a unified German state. The Industrial Revolution might have originated elsewhere, or progressed differently, under Spanish mercantilist policies. Global politics would be dominated by a vast Hispanic bloc, its history and geopolitical priorities vastly different from what we know. The very concept of Western civilization would be re-evaluated, centered not on Anglo-American ideals, but on Iberian and Catholic heritage. From a single shift in the winds of the English Channel in 1588, an entire tapestry of human history is rewoven. The rise of England, the establishment of the British Empire, the very foundations of American democracy and global English-speaking culture, all hinged on the fate of that one fleet. This alternate history serves as a powerful reminder of how precarious the path of history truly is, and how one pivotal moment, one twist of fate, can cascade through centuries, shaping civilizations and transforming the world into something utterly unfamiliar.